All righty. Maybe give folks 30 seconds to join and we will get started. All right. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you for being with us. And for the audience, you know the drill. Tell us where you're joining from and put it in the comments. If you have any comments, put it in the chat. And feel free to chime in with any questions that you might have during the conversation, and we will do our best to address them towards the end. AI, as we all know, and it's being called the most consequential technology of our time, to separate the hype from reality and to talk about the benefits and how it's being leveraged in the enterprise landscape, some of the challenges from a scalability perspective. I'm joined by an esteemed group of panelists. So without further ado, let's welcome them. And maybe we start with a quick round of intros. Tell us a little bit about your background, what keeps you busy, and why is this topic important to you? Renee, perhaps you want to kick us off?
Sure. Hey everyone, good to be here, and quite an active chat already. That's awesome. I lead global healthcare AI startups at NVIDIA, and I manage over 2,000 healthcare and life sciences AI startups in NVIDIA Inception program, which is a virtual accelerator program for 13,000 startups around the globe. And the startups I look after mainly are in imaging, instruments, drug discovery, and genomics in healthcare and life sciences space. I think this topic in particular is very important to me because it's related to human health. It's something that all of us can relate to, and how we can collectively advance science and also precision medicine.
Thank you. A very important role and job. Thank you for all you do. Ashish?
Hi, everyone. This is Ashish Atreja. I'm a physician executive at UC Davis Health. I currently serve as the role of Chief Information Officer and Chief Digital Health Officer, bringing the electronic health record, the data infrastructure, as well as digital health innovation to the health system. I think we all agree that healthcare actually has been the biggest burden on the GDP for US healthcare, but also where the maximum opportunity lies if we are able to automate and bring AI. Our CEO, Dr. Lubarsky, has did a TEDx talk recently and showcased this year as the year of kickstarting AI for healthcare. Of course, there's a lot of work to be done, and we are positioning UC Davis Health and UC as a university of collaboration, how we can bring and convene everyone together, industry, pharma, payers, health systems, startups together to really understand and how to leverage AI, but also really transform our health system from inside out. So really glad to be here, share our experience and challenges, and looking forward to learning from NVIDIA and ServiceNow. Thank you.
Thanks, Ashish. And I'm sure I have my biases, but you're probably one of the most forward-thinking CIOs, I feel, in the industry when it comes to, the latest and greatest as far as healthcare. So thank you for everything that you do. Jeremy.
Yeah, hi everyone, and it's a real pleasure to be here. I'm Jeremy Barnes. I am responsible for AI in the ServiceNow platform from a product management perspective. Before I joined ServiceNow, I was CTO at Element AI, which was a startup. We could say a generative AI startup now, although we didn't say it at the time. And before that, I've been in AI for nearly 25 years now. So I've seen it really go from this nascent to kind of a tool looking for an application and develop all the way to this incredibly sophisticated and powerful thing that it is now. From a ServiceNow perspective, our goal is to work with our customers to help them to improve the way in which their people work and to improve the outcomes that they have to whoever their customers are, which in healthcare is often patients. And that's something I think, given the amount of noise and hype around some of the generative AI technology at the moment, I think it's really useful to ground it in something which is, our health is personal to each of us. It doesn't get more real than that. And so I love the opportunity to have a conversation and to talk about not only how we can work as a company to do that, but how the industry is going to evolve, and where we can apply this huge lever in order to improve the kinds of the outcomes across entire societies. So with that, thank you, and let's get going.
Thanks, Jeremy. And you're doing some very important work at ServiceNow. So thank you for everything that you do. But let's talk about, how do each of you feel about the current state of AI? And when I say AI, it's all encompassing, from generative AI, large language models, so the entire landscape from predictions to creation. There's a lot of talk, and people are calling it, like, we have reached the iPhone moment in AI, if you will. So how do you filter out all the noise that exists out there from what is actually happening and what is really doable when it comes to the enterprise landscape, marketing versus reality? Jeremy, do you want to chime in?
Yeah, sure. So I think from the point of view of a former AI practitioner myself, it's really easy to get excited and carried away by the technology and the opportunities and things like that. From perspective of product at ServiceNow, we focus on one thing, which is what is the value that this is going to bring to our customers and the users there. And I think that helps us to put it in the right place. There are lots of problems which can be solved with AI. There are lots of problems which don't need AI to be solved as well. And really, the goal there is to make sure that it's an appropriate use of artificial intelligence in all of its flavors. Generative AI is the kind of the latest one, but there's a lot more there. And so to think how we do this, and also to look through, there's always trade-offs in any kind of a choice of how you solve a particular problem. I think those trade-offs are becoming more and more apparent at the moment. So how do we work with our customers and help provide them the ability to think through these trade-offs and to make the right choices and to bring in the end the value and the better outcomes for their customers. I won't talk. I think the others would be better to talk more directly about in the medical field. So I'll hand over the mic to someone else.
Sure, Ashish.
Yeah, happy to. This is so relevant. I think part of what we are trying to position is going from what we call as a market-centric approach. This all is there, and we get crazy about this, to actually going from a need-based, problem-based perspective. Like a typical design thinking approach, I think that has served us well in a digital health and AI world, because then you're not chasing the shiny objects. You're actually looking at your deeper purpose. You're looking at your mission and the vision. And we went through a strategic goals, a whole strategic planning 2 years ago. So we are looking at the lens of what are the problems that have already surfaced for us and the strategic priority, then how we can leverage tools to apply to those use cases. So I think that is something which I believe that served us well. And that strategy allows us to go away from all the noise, but actually really make a transformation. So for example, from our side, the strategic priorities are, how do we increase access to patients without creating more physician burnout and nurses burnout and fatigue? Mm-hmm. Big role for automation in that regard. How do we decrease the burden of documentation from the clinicians using ambient intelligence? How do we ensure a lot of the messages that come from the patients are automatically triaged, in some way automatically answered? So our sister organization, UCSD, just announced a partnership with OpenAI, Epic, and Microsoft to really kind of screen patients' messages. And I see my wife like spending at 10 p.m. trying to address patients' messages, right? So we can use them in the right application. So that's a big kind of a positioning for us. The other way I think to make it relevant, we do is we also look at how we don't do one-off success. Take this technology, do this use case, then you have to do a separate contracting with a separate company for another use case. That's a 1.5, 2 years journey for us. But how do we really leverage a platform approach? How do we build foundational platforms from data to make them open, and then foundational technologies to layer on top of them? So if we have to bring on solutions, that's a product on top of platform. So we can create multiple use cases on platform versus one application for one product and kind of doing thousands of these over the next 1,000 years. So I think that platform strategy has served us well as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Renee.
Yeah, looking at how to sniff through the noise, I definitely see lots of startups like every single day. I agree with both Jeremy and Ashish's comments, hands down. And from our perspective, we also look for data points or proof points. For example, if a startup is working with, have already established partnership with large and well-established organizations that are solving a real problem, or have access to very valuable data, and or maybe leveraging very mature technical solutions to solve the right problem. And if they do have their proprietary solutions, which ideally it's being either peer reviewed or deployed solution that have like tangible results. There's still very much in the Silicon Valley of you have an idea and then be able to get billions of dollars of funding. We do tend to look past those for investment at this point. We are looking for much more matured organizations. I think specifically also in healthcare, if you are coming with the solution that is very much like populated in the industry, let's just pick AI for imaging and radiology as an example. I think a very strong understanding of the competitive landscape and why does your solution stand out among the 300 other ones that kind of look and sound the same is a very unique one. And of course, regulatory concerns, right? With now FDA very much is upping the game of what's required for cybersecurity. What you used to have 7 pages now is 700 pages of documentation. Does the startup actually have a very strong understanding of what that means? And also integration into existing systems, and how does the reimbursement work? I think those are very much healthcare specific criteria that a startup should think through as we continue to sniff through the noise. Just as what Jeremy mentioned, it's not just about using AI. It's about what is the problem that we're trying to get to. And to what Ashish mentioned is, what is that patient outcome that we're trying to get to?
Wonderful. So let's double click on it. In each of your domains and areas, where are you seeing success? Are there any specific use cases that perhaps you can speak to make it real for the audience? Ashish, are you trying to or starting to test for some use cases within UC Davis landscape, or what does that look like?
Absolutely. I think we have a roadmap. We call it a Digital Davis roadmap, where we have identified various sectors or applications of AI, which we believe in the next 2 years, we want to validate, test, and bring to fruition. So I'll just briefly lay out those. One is very traditionally using machine learning and sensitivity to kind of look at the alerts that are coming from sensors and patients' vitals. We have a big initiative on care at home. So that will screen and kind of escalate the right things using AI to decrease the burden. We have another set of technology, like which Renee mentioned, on computer vision. So we partner with AI Doc, and they're the applications which we already have within our health system now, is how can we have real-time triage system. Anytime a person comes to ED, has an imaging, there's a backlog of radiologists when they read it. But if there's a stroke or something really needs that emergent attention, computer vision can immediately escalate. This is something that you have to read earlier than any other thing. That can cut down anywhere from 20 minutes to 1 hour. And that can make complete difference between a person who is having brain stroke and other things, or kind of pneumothorax and those kind of things. So we're using to kind of creating automation, but triage earlier on, escalating. Now, computer vision itself is just amazing, where we are expanding computer vision to say, how can we have an automatic follow of incidentallomas, where any incidental finding comes, sometimes you're not looking for it. How can we have that detected in the peripheral vision? Me as a gastroenterologist, computer vision is now within 2 years becoming mainstream in gastroenterology, where now there are FDA approved technologies from Medtronic and others, which can increase sensitivity of detecting polyps by 10% more. So I think it's just amazing. I think how fast, once we find the right use case, which is the right problem area, and the way to implement can grow very, very fast within 2 years. And that's amazing to see that. Going beyond computer vision, I alluded to how we want to kind of start seeing how we can use generative AI. That's still early for us in terms of giving education to the patients back. And education, what we have to really learn how to decrease the hallucinations, basically bring it all to the patient. So we are initially testing it internally in terms of policies and other kind of stuff before we go there. The other major area for us is, I mentioned ambient intelligence. So we are exploring how can we automate all the notes which physicians have to type in. And by the time you have sensors in the room, when you're having conversation with the patient, it automatically transcribes it. But using AI, it automatically structures them into our SOAP notes and also takes all those casual conversation, how are you, where are you, those kind of things out. And you can place orders and all those kind of things right without even touching our EMR interface. We're very excited about that possibility coming as well. So it's I think in a way it's exciting. We do know to make it real is a big journey. And really a lot of refinement and improvement and validation, which Renee mentioned, we have to do.
Yeah, very exciting for sure. Jeremy, from your perspective?
Yeah, so at ServiceNow, we really do take a platform perspective to things, and the goal is to start from the basics. Like every other company, in the medical industry, you have IT systems, you have employees. And you can help to begin to put in place systems to get visibility to manage those things there. After you start to do that, you can start to layer on top some things which are more specific to the industry once you have the visibility. So we have your process mining and optimization software, so we can understand what people are doing across the different functions and the departments, where the bottlenecks are, places which are causing unusual delays, poor outcomes, and things like that. And then once you have that visibility and you've kind of put together that platform, Ashish, I really appreciate what you mentioned was exactly our platform vision too. So it's great to be aligned there. Once that's all in place, you can start to layer on the stuff which is industry specific, like workforce optimization, how we understand the skills of the different people so that the right person is doing the right job, and you can kind of start to push it forward. And we all laugh about the unsolvable problem in computer vision is recognizing doctors' handwriting, right? But we have a document intelligence product which can digitize any kind of document, even types that has never been seen before, because it's taught as you go. And so bringing all that in, but at the same time adding on top of it, we know that no artificial intelligence is infallible. And we want to be really sure that we don't optimize for the simple cases and make it so that we, the rare events which happen, which are so important in particular in this industry, we're sensitive to, the system is sensitive to recognize them as well. So making sure that it all fits within the proper governance framework, that you can bring in everything that you need in the business logic, how you implement the compliance regimes, how you provide visibility and oversight and all of those things. We build that into the platform as well, so that it's something that it's not just kind of providing a vision, but it gives confidence to the people who are using it as well. And obviously AI is a super important part of that, and we integrate with pretty much anything in the world. And so, the goal there is that there is AI built in the platform, there's AI outside of the platform. The goal there is to bring, the best of what it is, bring it into what we call the platform of platforms, and drive the outcomes, orchestrating across those systems there. And so there are some specific characteristics and things we're building for the industry, but a big part of the value is just, how we think about it in terms of a platform.
Great. Renee?
Yeah, in the startup space, I think to summarize, I agree with all of the use cases that Jeremy and Ashish mentioned, because I definitely see a lot of organizations are going into the ambient intelligence space using computer vision and audio or fusion type like Artisai, Care AI, or Darvis, Safely You, all of them, just to name a few, all have their focus and priority and strength in the areas of in this computer visions of the world for hospitals or maybe elderly homes. And I would say any use cases that is trying to augment these tedious tasks like classifying, detecting, identifying could very much use AI. Some of the successes that we have seen earlier mentioned in imaging, probably a few that people know about is like Lunit, Vuno out in Korea, Viz AI from Israel, VinBrain out in Vietnam, just to name a few that are in radiology imaging space. And specifically even for different country, they have different focus as well. In drug discovery and silico medicine, actually have leverage AI to take a drug through phase 2 clinical trial, very exciting. Oxford Nanopore, a palm size sequencer in genomic space, is also doing quite some amazing stuff. I think one of the most exciting space is this generative AI boom that just happened fairly recently. We came out with a product called the BioNemo. Essentially think of it as like a large language model for biology and chemistry. And we work with large and small companies like Amgen to be able to explore and develop like therapeutic proteins for next generation medicine. And Evozyne, which is a smaller startup, to be able to kind of like find the design of synthetic variants. So these are all very, very exciting new areas that we are actively following. So I think we have seen the wave of AI starting about 12 years ago, and we have seen hundreds and thousands of hospital deployments with those much more mature solution to now seeing the hype is very much around generative AI. And I think success will come and hopefully will come very soon. But we're seeing some early success for sure.
Absolutely, thank you. And a follow-up to that, and both for you and Ashish, as you partner with the external ecosystem, what are the, I'm sure there are folks in the audience that would love to know, are there things that they could possibly do as far as what are the best practices? What does that roadmap look like from a partnership standpoint? And Jeremy, if you want to chime in as well, if there's anything from a ServiceNow perspective, if we're looking for external, like what are the things they should be thinking about? Ashish, you want to?
Yeah, happy to. I think I started at UC Davis Health around 2 years ago. And we really wanted to open it up for industry because a lot of the things we need in healthcare, the solutions are not within us. But we can't just do it, hey, we're there. So we were very intentional. We established CoLab as a collaborative hub with the intention of partnering with the industry. And it's a very nimble team. It has design thinkers. It has a full stack development team. It has an interface team liaison in that regard. So we can go anywhere from co-design, co-innovation, if that's an early idea, to co-validation. Like Renee mentioned, that any startup needs some of the validation in that regard, and validation not only in front of data, but also in implementation science. And then co-transformation or integration with EHRs. And if we validate it and it's good, then we can actually make sure no patient, no service line gets left behind. That's our concept from innovation to transformation journey. We call it a fit journey. So we have a single request form. Maybe I'll share that link in the chat channel, which allows people just to submit briefly what they're doing, the problem they are solving, and where they need our help as an anchor academic institution. And if that is something that's consistent with our roadmap and where we feel we can really help move the needle, we get back, set up a follow-up to that submission as a screener call, then align with the right stakeholders within UC Davis Health. We also have established a consortium of many health systems we partner with and payers and pharma as well. We work extensively, not only across the UC, which are one legal entity, although 5 health systems, as well as a campus. We also work exclusively through Node Health, the Association of Digital Medicine and AMA and others. to, if we find this is not a highest priority, we can contribute this, we can bring in other partners. It may be more aligned in that regard. We are evaluating, as an example, we got being through this for a technology which is amazing in AI, just by the conversation we are having without any video, just by audio, they can calculate a PHQ-9 score and a GAD-7 score. PHQ-9 is a very well-validated score of depression and GAD-7 of anxiety. And many times you don't even know, what is the status of a person. So even in a routine telehealth call with a patient, we can actually get to know their status of their mood without even talking about mood. And we are helping this company going through the FDA approval process. And we believe if this is successful, which we have big bets on, this will become a mainstream way, like a sixth vital sign. And we don't even have to measure the vital sign in a very deliberate manner. It actually is baked into our conversation. So we're really excited about, what Collab can do in the ecosystem in this regard.
That's wonderful. Renee, you want to chime in?
Yeah, the question was how to work with us, right?
Yeah. How to
Wanna
start
make sure.
like with your 2000 portfolio?
Yeah.
Portfolio, like what is that?
I can see from the startup perspective, sometimes looking at a pretty big organization, it's hard to know where to start. I think it's important to ask certain questions like, first is which department they're from. Like, for example, if you're healthcare startups, you can actually have multiple ways of working with an organization like NVIDIA. You can work with someone like me who is on the healthcare business unit team that has access to, a lot of our software toolkits, and many of them are for free. And sometimes even a lot of healthcare startups didn't even realize NVIDIA, which most people think is a gaming company, actually is doing quite a lot in healthcare, as an example. So technology engagement is one thing, or working with our Inception team, which is a program that I mentioned earlier, that has many, many free benefits for the startups to tap into, or even working with our Venture team, which invest in startups that are much more mature from Series A or Series B onwards, and they're looking for financial return and, of course, strategic investments and things. And of course, we have another department that's called Corp Dev, where they also look for strategic investments and sometimes also do merger and acquisition. Each of them have different theses and themes. So as a healthcare startups coming in, knowing what the organizations are looking for and see if that actually aligned to what you are looking for, and ask the relevant questions will be very important. Otherwise, sometimes I do see some startups will come to one of the venture orgs, even after I share with them, we're looking for, like maybe companies that we have already worked with for 6 months and above on a very regular basis with the technical team. And I met them literally the second time. They will still want to ask me, how can we keep on working together? So I think sometimes really hearing what we're saying and internalize that and ask additional questions to move the partnership forward. And because sometimes, even though if it's a no, it doesn't mean the startup is not a good startup. It just means with the limited bandwidth and the priority and the focus, we have to prioritize certain organizations. So I think given that there's so many startups out there, finding the right partner can save a lot of time for an organization to move forward. And if a startup's roadmap sometimes actually line up with a larger organization's roadmap, perhaps even consider piggyback on top of a giant, can save quite a lot of development time as well. Yeah, I'll pass it to Jeremy.
Yeah, so I take off my ServiceNow hat and I spent most of my career doing startups myself, although not in the industry. And so, what I think is really exciting about artificial intelligence is to some extent, it's quite democratized in that, it's not access to that technology because it's developed mostly through open research and open collaboration between research teams. It's quite an amazing story of cutthroat competition, but that's led to cooperation that's created some quite amazing potential there. But what I find really exciting is, I know a few founders of startups who are in the space, and the thing which sticks out, I was saying just before the meeting, is like the stories, the reason that they're doing it. They're not just we want to make lots of money type thing. It's like, I believe that we can improve the outcome for a lot of people, and there's something there which I think we can make happen. Their stories, I almost give you goosebumps. It's quite amazing, often based on deep personal experience. And so, as she said, having the ability to go and to get access to people who understand how to take that idea all the way to the outcome and the patient, everything like that, I think is absolutely crucial. Programs, I was in the Inception program for a few startups, so your programs like that also are super important because they allow people to learn a little bit as a team and across. So what I would say is the important thing on that partnership angle is to make sure that you give the companies a space that they need in order to, it's not a question of we want to lock this up and like that. The outcome, if the outcome is great, there will be value for everyone there. I think it's nurturing the ecosystem there, and that allows, I know that there's quite a lot of M&A activity among startups in the space, in order to facilitate FDA approvals and things like that, which is great because the best ideas get to market faster. So, I'd say maintaining the vibrancy of the ecosystem is really important. From our perspective, I think the one thing we're contributing a lot is towards the governance of artificial intelligence and the way in which we can create these kinds of models with a view towards how they will be perceived and what you can guarantee about them. Taking it away from the wild west of grab every bit of data that you can and throw it into a model, and more towards being intentional about how you build them. And that's what I'm excited about a ServiceNow platform is, that's our approach to artificial intelligence. I think that can bring something to the table too. So, a bunch of things there more from a generic perspective, but super exciting.
Great. And perfect timing, Renee. Welcome back. So,
Speaking of
all right.
technology.
I know. Well, we still have a long ways to go when it comes to a few things. But what are, as you're all thinking about scaling and leveraging AI within your own environments, what's top of mind for you? What are the questions that you're asking yourself? And Jeremy, you alluded to the fact of more transparency in how the algorithms are trained. So what are the few things that we should be thinking about, whether it's privacy, things like hallucinations and integrations with existing systems, and we'll get to, I feel like I will follow it up with a question that we might spend time on. Costs, like how much does it take to actually implement AI? So let's see, who wants to go first? Ashish?
Yeah, happy to. I think I would say there's just a recent article came in Stat about experience from Duke University. And I think that's a must read. I'll share the link for that in the chat as well. Must read for anyone in healthcare. It just shows how big the gap is between what's possible, what we are hearing, and the reality. And I see that not only as a wake-up call that there's a very big gap, but also the call for action. First, by acknowledging that gap exists, we accept the current reality. And the second part is, which we should not ignore, because the fact is we are not using in a day-to-day business most of the AI things. This is much more before generative AI. Right? Healthcare is still going on without really optimizing that for AI. The really fundamental barriers that exist even before generative AI. The second part is only when we acknowledge the gap exists, but we know there's a value there, we'll start working together to say how we start addressing those barriers. So what are those barriers, or I would say opportunities for improvement in this regard? I think one is, I think the ecosystem problem is we need to have platforms like NVIDIA, or I would say to bring the right relevant technologies, validated technologies together, but also platforms whether it's a EHR or ServiceNow, where we can host technologies. Most of the health systems are still in a journey. Data is the foundational asset on which AI algorithms come. Most of the health systems are still a little early in their journey to normalize and standardize their data assets and to make it open, available. Not open, not everyone to the public, but to the partnership. Because the AI models will look at the data variables in a standard manner. But if my data is in a different manner, the AI algorithm same cannot run, right? So I think those are fundamental, foundational, I would say, things which we need to do. I work with FHIR, FHIR for interoperability. I think there's a lot of use cases that can happen. Once you go beyond those foundational things and say, really, how can we bring it on? It comes to evaluating AI algorithms. First, looking at, is it a purpose fit for us? We talked about coming from a problem experience. Is it something that we really can create value for our health system within the next 1 or 2 years? If we cannot, it's fine. That may not be, we can refer it to other partners who can maybe at that stage. So once that strategic alignment has happened, then the question is, what is the outcome you have measured or you want to measure? We have a big saying that we want to meet patients where they are. I think the same concept applies. And I'm a big believer that academic centers need to stop being ivory towers and we are this, that you are a startup, you need to do what we want. I think we need to, if we really want to move the ecosystem, we have to meet the startups where they are. And as far as they are ready to learn and grow, we can walk the path with them in that regard. So what I mean by that is they're very early in the stage, we can co-innovate with them. If they're a little further, we need to co-validate with them. But if they have already done through validation cycle and published something, then we need to know if there's biases there in the population they have used and the approaches they have done. So we need to look at that validation approaches in that regard. And if there is some gaps there, we can train. UC Davis has one of the most diverse patient population. We're third most diverse medical school. So we look a lot from the equity lens in that regard and make it wholesome. And once we go through that challenge or that opportunity, we go through integration, then we go through transformation and measuring the value of that. We use the return on health measures so we can measure comprehensively, not just from financial standpoint, but also impact on patient experience, physician experience, patient safety, patient outcome. Right. So we have these 7 measures in return on health measures. So that way we publish it out and we share the implementation science. So any other healthcare organization can take it from there and really take it to the next level and not have to redo all those processes. So we call it a 7-step. It's becoming now 10-step process with generative AI as a road. And I think hopefully we'll work a lot with communities like Coalition of Healthcare AI, CHAI, AMA, Node Health, to really make open science, openly available this structure, and have many health systems join together in that part.
Wonderful. Jeremy?
Yeah, so I think my concerns about the appropriate use of technology are really about the technology that we have, particularly with some of the latest large language models, is quite amazing. But there is a kind of a scientific perspective to it, which is that they have a certain set of things they can do and a certain set of things that they just can't do. And so my concern is a little bit about making sure that the scientific process was used to create those models. And I think the people who create them do have a good understanding. But now they're so easy to use, driving that science all the way through, I think is really important. So some examples are the current crop of large language models. They have a fixed amount of computation they can do. They can't stop and think about a problem or something like that. And so you could ask it to, here is a set of case notes to plan out your treatment plan or something like that. And it will create a very credible sounding treatment plan for you. Even if you give it no information, it can still do the same thing there. And so they're not actually capable of doing planning, of understanding, causal relationships between things like that. So it's easy, I think, to look and say in the best case, it can do something amazing, but the value is not necessarily in making it a little bit faster to do the easy things. It's about being able to understand more. I think a lot of what happens in healthcare is about the unexpected or the rare event, things like that. So, making sure that we are designing systems which will, from a scientific perspective, be able to continue to detect the unlikely or the rare things, that are able to use all of the information, and that are not based on things that, where the algorithm is potentially pretending to do things. So, I think a big part of that is really making sure that we do continue to take a scientific approach. It's a little bit like when, at least the way I think about it, when you have artificial intelligence, it will fail 100% sure. It will give you the wrong answer in some cases. And so it's not good enough to test that it works, because that tells you absolutely nothing. That's like, if someone told me, hey, Jeremy, these are the numbers, the lottery ticket for tomorrow will not be those numbers. It doesn't give me anything, right? It's, it's useless information. What you need is to say, all the cases in which it's going to break, so you can understand these are the limits in which this system is applicable, and you can start to build a governance around, which is like someone giving me the real numbers, in which case, I can go win a lotto, right? So I think bringing that knowledge and understanding, which is there within the community that creates these models, but having it go all the way to the people who are using them and deploying them and creating systems based on them, I think is really, really important. And so you're understanding that entire system there. And my concern is that we need to do a great job, both across regulation and the systems which are designed to ensure the trust that people have. You're putting your life on the line, literally, in many situations, ensuring that we inform that properly, and that we think about the entire system, not just about the specific aspects of it, because it's really the system that needs to work, not the technology behind it or something like that.
Great. Awesome. Renee?
Yeah, so the question was, what questions are we asking ourselves as we're thinking through scaling AI? And I think for earlier I already mentioned about like how we evaluate startups. Those are actually, if you turn that into a question, those are definitely something that I think about on a daily basis. If you look at the large language model perspective, I think Jeremy and Ashish earlier also mentioned a little bit of those questions that we're asking right now. And hearing from the startups, a lot of them are also asking about compute availability and also the costs that come with training potential large language models, and also hallucination. I think those are all problems that we hope to look for solutions to help out with the community collectively. A couple of months back, we announced DGX Cloud as an example of making it more of a GPU availability and also a consistent kind of a pricing on a monthly basis. And Nemo guardrail that was out about a week and a half ago, it's essentially putting guardrails to ensure large language models could be topical, safe, and secure. And it's open source. We decided to open source just so we can collaborate with the industry leaders to ensure this problem that's top of mind for everyone could hopefully in the future have some sort of a way of solving it. I think we're all in this together, and those are a lot of the top of mind questions that we're asking and our startups are asking us about, and we hope to work with the ecosystem to come up with a solution that works well for everyone.
Great. Yeah, it's a constant work in progress, right? So yeah. Awesome. Well, I know we have 15 minutes and we promised the audience that we will take some questions. So the first one, and Jeremy and Renee, it might be for both of you. And I also want to be mindful. I know there's some announcements coming in the future, but how much can you speak about it? Totally up to you. The question is, do we at ServiceNow have a collaborative digital twin strategy and roadmap with NVIDIA?
Jeremy, I'll pass it to you.
Yeah, so from my perspective, that's definitely above my pay grade. Typically those kinds of things, at least from what I've noticed, when CEOs tend to like take planes together or end up in the same hotel or something, that's when they happen. I have no idea, the movements of either mine nor Renee's CEO. So don't know anything about that, but if there's something to be announced, it would probably be next week at our knowledge conference.
Yeah, so be on the lookout. So, and that's totally fair, Jeremy. Yeah, thank you for that. Our next question is, how much of the gray area of an algorithm, how much and what is capable of processing or not processing be corrected and strengthened by ML, machine learning? At what point do we design an algorithm that will autonomously correct its own shortfalls, similar to OpenAI and ChatGPT? Who wants to do that first?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I can talk about some instances. I think for any algorithm to correct it, whether automatically or guided, it needs a feedback. So there's some way we have to generate a way for the feedback when it exposes the algorithm to a real world. So a few things which we are working on is, if an algorithm creates, so from us, algorithm creates insight and some next steps, but how do you deliver those next steps? So we have two ways of delivering the next steps in a very broad level. One is through the electronic health records, so the physicians, the nurses, and other clinicians can see those alerts and they can act on it. And the other way is to give it directly to the patients, and patients can see it using our digital channels, text, chat, email, patient portal, and others. So one of the things we're working from the EHR side is, when there's an algorithm that's recommending something and a physician or clinician sees it and they feel it is not relevant or not right or needs correction, as soon as it pops them in the EHR, there is a way to put a thing that this is not correct and this is the limitation of it. And that goes back to the algorithm to kind of say, hey, this is the feedback, and it keep on training itself. I think we still need a much more better way. If you have FDA approval of an AI algorithm, you cannot modify it every day. You have to lock your code with fidelity and then reapply later on or at a revision. So there's a gap between the FDA approval algorithms becomes outdated, but in real world, you can go beyond that and train them and get the latest version of that. So I think it's still a very gray area, like they pointed out, but we are working on how we can do corrections in that regard. Now, you can also set up automated corrections. Again, I'm not an expert in that, but you can create the outcome of the patient it is trying to predict and feed that outcome automatically back from the data to keep on correcting and addresses the biases which happen based on the population which the algorithm was trained. So you can set up automated triggers of feedback as well in that regard. Renee probably has much more knowledge working across many startups, how they are approaching this.
Renee, you want to go next? Or Jeremy?
What was the question again? I was trying to read which one without losing.
So yeah, I'll read it out. The last part. It's like, at what point do we design an algorithm that will autonomously correct its own shortfalls, similar to OpenAI, ChatGPT?
I don't think I can answer that from a technical perspective, besides watching that everyone else is trying to do that, and hoping to put various different guardrails in place to get to where it is. And then I think you can set up guardrails up front of saying that you can set the parameters to answer certain questions in a certain way that's within context. Even just asking what's the egg yolk as an example. What are some ingredients that's within the egg yolk that's good for us, right? A nutritionist might answer that very differently from someone who is maybe a doctor or someone who is reading a book that's trying to write a book for children, right? For kids. So I think setting context in place could perhaps mitigate, or maybe down the road don't have to correct as much. So those are all things that people are working on. I don't think we have a holy grail in terms of how that will work just yet.
Yeah, to add a couple of points to that, it's definitely a unsolved problem. I've several times in the past, I've seen systems which, attempting to self-learn, they kind of push themselves into their, whatever the equivalent of a filter bubble is. They learn from their own experience. And, the real thing you're asking there is, can a closed system somehow, create new information to get better? Right. And the answer to that is usually no. Systems, some systems, AI algorithms can interpolate well, so they can kind of figure out, between two things, what's in between them. But extrapolation, going beyond what they were trained on, you typically need to design it very carefully, or you need to have an input of information that doesn't come from the system itself, it comes from some other system. So I would be really, really dubious of any claims of self-learning. Even the things we've seen recently, like using a large language model to create instruction prompts for another large language model, that's really, there's extra information coming out because a larger one was trained on more information. And so, I just think you should be really careful about any kind of closed loop system that imagining it's going to be able to find the right outcome. It'll specialize towards something, but it's almost impossible to control what it is. So I would be dubious of anything which claimed to be able to do that, unless it was really, really carefully designed, or there was a human in the loop or something like that in order to make sure it stayed on track.
Yeah, great. Here's another one. Will AI eventually be trained enough to reach out to other AI for that outside information, though? Jeremy, you want to start there? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you probably noticed that, the first version of ChatGPT only knew about stuff in 2021, but now you can go and use a generative AI and it can tell you, who won the match yesterday, like that. Those systems behind the scenes, what they do is they say, here is the question, I don't have the information I need, so I'm gonna, invoke some kind of a web search or something like that before they go and do the web search, and then they get that information back, and then they answer the question based on that information. It's called retrieval augmented generation, but there's also all kinds of systems now which use generative AI to invoke other APIs to do useful things. So absolutely, that's exactly the direction that things are going, and we're just getting started. It's both extremely powerful, and we're going to have to obviously think a lot about what it means when those systems are systems that can act and not just provide information.
Absolutely. And I want to point out to that, one of the comments in the chat again is, when AI algorithm autocorrects itself, there are also consequences for us all. Essentially, you're allowing the AI to improve itself without any specific boundaries. So how do we set those boundaries and guardrails again? Awesome. Let's see, a few questions. Since feedback can be positive or negative, how does one ensure the integrity and correctness of the AI provided information?
So I think, at least from our side, it depends. The AI has to be designed in a way it can take continuous feedback.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I think that's a very big part of implementation science of AI. And many models, like sepsis algorithm is a big one. It was actually creating fairly amount of area under the curve, 85-90%, and then it degenerated as it started applying for large populations when it was not trained. So it's very important to design and implement AI so they have a feedback loop. That's probably the most important part. And then you can have the feedback loop is there, and then you assess the impact of that feedback loop. So it's not one and done like a product that is there in a hardware or something like that. It's an evolution of that part in that regard, and you have to set the parameters. Mm-hmm. So I think we all understand it's just been less than 6 months since generative AI really became a commodity. It's a watershed event. I mean, I have not seen anything like that. I've been in 35 years in healthcare, 25 years completely in technology domain. such a technology which can have amazing potential.
Mhm.
So a lot of these things is so new, that we can't expect it to be perfect. I mean, it took 6th generation of phone to really become iPhone. And it's we have to have a journey here. But I think there's a question here, very briefly want to answer the implications of ChatGPT in healthcare, which I think is probably can be the topic of next 10 webinars. Shuchi,
Yes,
but
I have to do several one.
it is such a foundational technology. I think it's gonna impact not only the education part, how medical students or anyone can learn about education about healthcare, to research, they can find new molecules to target and research trial processes, to really mainstream clinical practice impact by allowing patients to get answers to questions which only they could have to make an appointment with a specialist to answer. So really can open up access in an amazing way if we train it the right way, to really jumpstarting innovation. You can make startup pitch deck within 10 minutes if you do it the right way. You can create new product ideas through Dolly and generative AI on the new form factors. You can get it as well. So I think the innovation impact can be amazing in that regard. So I think it's up to us to use it in a meaningful manner, and really share what we are learning, how we are learning. So I think we can take humanity to a completely different level if done the right way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think there needs to be intention and investment to do it the right way. So, Renee, anything to add there?
I think this topic is very much around where this future will go. And for those that are using ChatGPT yourself, myself included, on a daily basis, and those that may be thinking about for their kids, what major they should be choosing for college, or what should they be learning with the what ChatGPT emerges, I would say those that use it will definitely stay ahead of the curve and comparing to those who don't. And for example, NVIDIA also has the Deep Learning Institute to continue to upskill our level to be at the forefront of innovation. So I encourage those that are thinking about what does this mean for me, for my team, for my family, for the industry, to continue to look for opportunities to upskill. And I think I have faith that we will all figure out a way to continue to advance together in a very positive way.
Great. And Jeremy, for you, across industry, doesn't have to be healthcare specific, but anything to share?
I mean, I think Renee said or she said it's a bit of a watershed moment. That's absolutely true. I think the challenge is going to be how it's not going to be finding the idea or finding the opportunity or things like that. It's going to be how to align that with the expectations of the people, with the current state of things, with all of the kind of goals you can't measure as easily, and how to put together a system where the AI or the generative AI or whatever type it is able to drive the value, but the system kind of remains something which was designed intentionally in order to do that in a particular way. And I think, as we move on, I think the people at OpenAI said they're not going to create larger language models anymore. And I think there's beginning to be realization that it's not the generative AI itself, it's everything around it now which is missing in order to be able to be confident about what we're doing. And a lot of what we're going to learn, and everyone, probably everyone in the world is going to learn, is about how we think about that white space which surrounds the possibility, and leaves it being something which we're comfortable with and is net positive benefit to our society, and making sure that that's absolutely true. And for me, the big tool which we need to use for that is science. There is a big role for science in that, even when the systems include messy stuff, which is hard to measure, like, humans, for example, we still need to use science to help us to be able to make conclusions about, what the systems are going to do. So yeah, very exciting, but there's a lot more work to do around the edges of it now that the algorithms can do some amazing things.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. As much as I'd love to continue the conversation, our time is up. And thank you for choosing your time to spend your time with us. I'd encourage all the folks in the audience to follow all of our speakers for the latest and greatest in the industry. And thank you again. So hopefully we'll get you back soon for a follow-up.
Thanks, everyone.
All. Take care.